It was supposed to be a normal flight, just another routine day for passengers boarding the plane. Among them was a simple mom, carrying her baby carefully in her arms, hoping for a smooth journey. She never imagined that a single moment could turn her entire trip into a shocking nightmare. The flight attendants were going about their work, but one of them seemed unusually strict, almost impatient. What happened next stunned everyone around. Without warning, the flight attendant confronted the mom, demanding she move or behave in a way that felt unfair and harsh. The mom tried to stay calm, trying to explain herself while holding her baby close. But the situation escalated quickly, and in a moment no one expected, the flight attendant actually slapped her. Passengers gasped, and tension filled the cabin. People looked around, unsure if they should intervene, but the scene left everyone frozen in shock. What no one on that plane could have predicted was that this simple mom had a secret connection that would completely change the outcome. Her husband wasn't just anyone, he was the owner of the airline. Suddenly, the power dynamic shifted in a way that nobody saw coming. The flight attendant, so confident and in control just moments ago, was about to face consequences far beyond her understanding. As the plane continued on its journey, whispers began to circulate among the passengers. The mom remained calm, holding her baby, but inside, a storm was brewing. Would the flight attendant regret her actions? And how would the airline owner react when he found out what happened right under his nose? This was more than just an in-flight argument, it was a clash of arrogance and authority, and the fallout was about to shock everyone. The tension was palpable, and one thing was certain, no one would ever forget this flight. The mom sat quietly, her baby still in her arms, her heart racing but her face calm. Passengers who had witnessed the slap were still whispering to each other, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Nobody could understand why a flight attendant would act so aggressively towards someone who posed no real threat. Yet, there was something more to this mom than met the eye, though no one aboard the plane realized it yet. Her husband, a man who had quietly built one of the most successful airlines in the country, was known for his sharp business mind and no-nonsense attitude. But he was also fiercely protective of his family, especially his wife. She had always been gentle, humble, the kind of person who went about her life without asking for attention. Today, that simplicity had drawn unwanted attention in the worst possible way. Meanwhile, the flight attendant, still unaware of the mom's identity, continued her duties as if nothing had happened, but there was a subtle unease in her demeanor now. Something about the mom's calmness, her eyes steady and unwavering, made the flight attendant pause for the first time. Around them, passengers were exchanging nervous glances, some pulling out their phones, unsure if they should record the incident or just hope it resolved itself quietly. As the flight progressed, small details started to emerge. The mom's confidence wasn't just from shock or fear, it carried a quiet strength, a sense that she had faced difficult situations before. At the same time, subtle signs hinted that someone on this plane might notice her connection to the airline. A steward glanced her way, a passenger whispered, and tension simmered like a hidden storm ready to erupt. No one knew exactly when the truth would come out, or how the flight attendant would react once she realized the gravity of her actions. The air inside the cabin was thick with anticipation, and every moment felt like it was building toward an inevitable confrontation that could change everything on this flight. As the flight continued, the tension in the cabin was palpable. Passengers tried to pretend everything was normal, but eyes kept darting toward the mom and the flight attendant. Some whispered theories, speculating about what had happened, while others quietly recorded the incident on their phones. The mom remained composed, gently soothing her baby, but inside she was replaying the moment over and over. The slap wasn't just an attack, it was a challenge, a test of patience and resilience she hadn't expected to face on what was meant to be a simple journey. From the flight attendant's perspective, the day had started like any other. She prided herself on following rules and keeping order on the plane, but the slap had changed something. Deep down, a flicker of worry began to creep in. She hadn't expected anyone to stand up to her like that, and certainly not with such calm authority. Unbeknownst to her, this confrontation would soon reach far beyond the confines of the airplane cabin. Meanwhile, a few passengers started to notice subtle cues, the way the mom carried herself, the quiet confidence in her eyes. There was something different about her, something that didn't quite fit the image of an ordinary traveler. A businesswoman seated nearby leaned over to her companion, whispering, "I feel like she's not just any mom, there's more to her story." The murmur spread, creating a ripple of curiosity and speculation. Outside the immediate conflict, smaller subplots began to unfold. A young mother struggling with her own child watched anxiously, wondering how anyone could be treated like that while trying to care for a baby. A businessman, tired of flights but fascinated by human drama, quietly observed, thinking about authority, pride, and the consequences of unchecked arrogance. Every perspective added layers to the unfolding story, turning a single incident into a web of tension, emotion, and anticipation. With each passing minute, the air grew heavier. The question on everyone's mind was the same: when would the truth come out, and what would happen when it did? Every heartbeat on that plane seemed to echo the suspense, building toward a confrontation that nobody could yet predict. The cabin seemed to shrink with every passing minute. Passengers shifted nervously in their seats, the whispers growing louder, the tension almost tangible. The mom held her baby closer, feeling the heat of judgment and curiosity from every corner, but refusing to show fear. She knew that one moment of anger or panic could make things worse, and she also knew that patience was her only weapon. The flight attendant, meanwhile, tried to maintain control, but small signs of unease betrayed her. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed out drinks, and she avoided direct eye contact with the mom. Deep down, she sensed that the balance of power had shifted, though she didn't yet understand why. Around her, passengers exchanged glances, some subtly filming, others whispering speculations about the mom's identity. A few had started to connect dots: the calm demeanor, the quiet confidence, the way people instinctively gave her space. It all hinted that this wasn't just any traveler. In the seat behind, a businessman adjusted his tie nervously, realizing that this incident was more than a clash of personalities. It was about authority, reputation, and consequences. A young mother glanced at her child and then at the mom, silently rooting for her, sensing the unfairness of the situation. Each perspective added a new layer of tension, a new heartbeat of suspense that pulsed through the cabin. Suddenly, the sound of a phone unlocking drew everyone's attention. A passenger had quietly started typing a message, possibly to someone who could influence the outcome. The flight attendant's face paled slightly, as if she sensed the walls closing in. The mom's calm eyes met hers for a brief second, a silent warning carried in the gaze. Somewhere deep inside, she knew that the storm was about to break, and the consequences of one impulsive action were about to collide with a hidden truth that nobody on the plane yet fully grasped. As the plane hummed steadily above the clouds, a thick silence fell. Every passenger seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment when the tension would finally erupt, when authority, pride, and hidden power would clash in a way that none of them could have predicted. The climax was coming, and nobody on that flight would be able to forget it. Just as the cabin seemed frozen in suspense, a sudden announcement from the cockpit added an unexpected twist. The pilot's calm voice over the intercom carried a subtle tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've encountered a minor technical issue and will be delaying our descent. We appreciate your patience." Passengers murmured anxiously, and the delay gave the growing drama in the cabin even more time to unfold. The flight attendant, already uneasy, now felt the pressure mounting. Her glance kept flicking toward the mom, whose composure never wavered, even as whispers and stares intensified around them. Every small movement felt amplified, every gesture under scrutiny. Then, out of nowhere, a passenger discreetly tapped the mom on the shoulder. It was a journalist, someone who had recognized her from a recent business feature highlighting her husband's rise in the airline industry. The words were soft, almost conspiratorial. "Do you realize who your husband is?" The mom simply nodded, keeping her baby close, and a quiet ripple of realization spread through nearby passengers. Eyes widened, murmurs turned into shocked gasps, and suddenly the atmosphere in the cabin shifted. The flight attendant's confidence faltered as pieces began to fall into place. The very mom she had thought was ordinary was connected to the highest authority on the airline. Panic replaced her earlier arrogance, but she tried desperately to maintain control, knowing that one wrong move now could have consequences far beyond anything she had imagined. Meanwhile, the passengers who had sensed something unusual earlier now watched the unfolding scene with renewed intensity. Phones were subtly raised, whispers became more urgent, and the tension crackled like electricity. The mom's quiet strength contrasted sharply with the flight attendant's rising panic, and it was clear that this was no longer a simple in-flight incident. Authority, pride, and power were about to collide, and the stakes had just risen higher than anyone on the plane could have predicted. Every heartbeat, every glance, every subtle gesture now carried the weight of an imminent confrontation. The flight was no longer just a journey, it had become a battleground of suspense, and the climax was dangerously close. The cabin held its breath as the flight attendant finally turned to face the mom fully, her composure cracking. You're married to him?" she stammered, voice trembling with a mix of fear and disbelief. The mom's eyes met hers calmly, a small, knowing smile playing at her lips. "Yes," she said softly, "and actions have consequences, especially when you underestimate people you think are ordinary." Passengers watched in stunned silence as the weight of the situation sank in. The flight attendant's face went pale, realizing that a single moment of arrogance had put her career, and her reputation, on the line. Some passengers subtly started recording, others just stared, unable to look away. The mom remained calm, soothing her baby, showing that strength often comes quietly, without drama or shouting. The contrast between her composure and the flight attendant's panic made the resolution all the more powerful. Suddenly, the door to the cockpit opened, and the airline owner himself stepped into the cabin. The flight attendant froze, and a hush fell over everyone. "I've just been informed about what happened," he said, his tone calm but authoritative. "I always expect professionalism on my airline, and I never tolerate disrespect toward any passenger." The flight attendant swallowed hard, guilt and fear evident, while the mom's eyes remained steady, reflecting both relief and quiet triumph. But just when it seemed the story had reached its conclusion, a new, shocking twist emerged. A security officer discreetly approached, whispering to the mom, "Sir, we've intercepted a threatening message on social media targeting this flight." It seems someone knew this confrontation might make headlines. The cabin's tension shot back up, now mixed with a new layer of danger and intrigue. The mom held her baby tightly, taking a deep breath, while passengers exchanged wide-eyed glances. What began as a simple act of unfair treatment had spiraled into something much larger, a story of power, justice, and unexpected threats. The flight was no longer just about a slap, it had become a test of courage, control, and survival. And as the plane continued toward its destination, every eye stayed fixed on her, waiting to see what would happen next. The tension slowly began to ease as the mom's calm presence seemed to steady everyone around her. The airline owner spoke quietly with the flight attendant, explaining the severity of her actions while offering a chance for sincere apology and correction. She nodded, tears welling up as she realized the weight of her behavior, and in front of the passengers, she apologized to the mom, her voice trembling. The mom accepted the apology gracefully, showing that strength isn't in retaliation, but in dignity. The passengers clapped quietly, a subtle celebration of the woman who had faced unfairness, held her ground, and emerged with dignity. The flight attendant, now humbled, promised to learn from the experience and treat others with respect, while the airline owner ensured that every step was taken to prevent similar incidents in the future. By the time the plane touched down, the tension had completely lifted, replaced by a sense of relief and reflection. It was a journey that began with conflict but ended with lessons about respect, humility, and the hidden strength in ordinary people. And for everyone on that flight, the memory of a simple mom standing tall under pressure would stay long after the trip was over.